Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine. This is my 14th budget meeting. I don't know if they get easier over time or whether they get harder. And primarily and the chairman knows this, and I don't know how much Commissioner Nesbitt and Commissioner Van Ness, the chairman, has discussed with you the personnel issues that I'm going to bring up today. But primarily my discussion this morning is going to deal with personnel. I think I told you last year at some point in time I'm going to have to come talk to you about personnel. And I think I told you the year before at some point in time I'm going to have to come and talk to you about personnel. We've now reached that point. Let me start with my first request, which I think is the easiest and maybe makes very good sense. And maybe Judge Bills talked about it this morning during her presentation. I don't know if she did or not. But the first request that I have is to continue a position that the Board of Commissioners approved back in 2010. It was a grant paid, it was a burn grant, Assistant District Attorney position for the State Court of Rockdale County, primarily directed towards handling domestic violence cases. Back during that time frame, you may recall that we applied for grant monies which would provide an assistant district attorney, an individual at the sheriff's office, and an individual at the city to help strengthen our response to domestic violence cases and to quicken our response in domestic violence cases. And I think we saw approximately 3 weeks ago today, I think, how important those cases can be with the shooting that we had in very South Rockdale, almost Henry County, where we had a mom and her daughter shot in a domestic-related situation. And so those positions were approved by this board, and then they went to work. And what we have seen over the last 14 months, especially in the area with the Assistant District Attorney position, is it has cut in half our time from arrest to first appearance in court. Whereas we were looking at, before the addition of that position, we were looking at about a 4 to 6 month turnaround from arrest to the first appearance in court. We've now cut that to 2 to 3 months for that first appearance in court. And that helps the victim in a case, that helps the defendant in a case to get to court quickly, and it helps everybody involved with that type of situation to get to the courtroom, to see a judge, and for us to go ahead and start putting in place those types of things necessary to keep people safe and to keep the caseload moving.
Can you explain in regards to that? Does that also relate to like a temporary restraining order? Does that fall into that category as well?
Temporary restraining orders you can get almost immediately.
Okay.
There is and I don't know the exact classification, but I'll use the term secretarial position
right.
that is associated with the Superior Court judges, whose primary function is to assist those folks who come to the courthouse and request temporary protective orders. And so you can walk in today, this afternoon, request the forms, fill out the forms, and have that on a calendar in Superior Court within the next couple of days. Okay. So that moves very quickly. And that's primarily through that office, but we are assistable in the District Attorney's Office. That is, my victim witness staff helps with the preparation of temporary protective orders, and when the judge's secretary is not available, our staff helps victims in that area.
So can you explain to me, can you give me a situation of a type of case that would take 2 to 3 months?
Well, primarily what we're looking to, let's start with an event happens today and the arrest takes place. That person is placed under arrest.
What
depending
type
on
of event? I guess
a domestic violence event. Let's say it's an assault. Let's say it's an attack. It could be anything, but it's a domestic violence event. That person is placed under arrest today. Depending on whether or not it's a bondable case or not, they would go either that afternoon or the next day for what is called the first appearance hearing, where they're told what they're charged with and told their initial rights. If it's a bondable case, a bond may be set at that first appearance hearing. If a bond is not set, then that case is scheduled for what is known as a committal hearing in magistrate court, usually within 2 weeks of the arrest, where the individual goes before a magistrate court judge, and an initial hearing is held to determine two things. Number one, is there probable cause to believe that a crime took place? Number two, is there probable cause to believe the person charged committed the crime? That usually happens within 2 weeks. Sometimes the public defender's office or attorneys will request a continuance, which could drag it out a little bit, but usually within 2 weeks we have that committal hearing. At that committal hearing, assuming the judge finds that there's probable cause to believe a crime took place and the person charged committed the crime, the case is then bound over to my office. It usually takes a couple of days for the warrants and the paperwork to transfer, but it's bound over to my office. And when it comes to my office, we open it, we run a criminal history, we send out victim impact information for the victims in the case. In domestic violence cases, I have an investigator who is solely dedicated to domestic violence cases, and so we try to make contact with the victim in the case within the first few days after an event takes place to let them know what resources are available, and also to see if we can get them to come into the office and talk to us about what happened.
But the criminal history is not run until what point?
The criminal history in my office is run when we open the case. The criminal history
That's not right when the original information is filed.
The sheriff's office probably runs a criminal history.
And I guess that's what I just wanted peace of mind, because I know that's been a big conversation, and I know there was a case in Newton County that happened where the young woman was killed right after she got the TPO, because there's just, so my concern is really the time lapse and how this will hopefully, change with the...
You got to keep in mind, I'm a separate entity from the magistrate court, and I'm a separate entity from the sheriff's office. The initial investigation is usually done by the sheriff's office. I'm almost certain, and the sheriff could probably fill you in a little better, but I'm almost certain at the time of an arrest, a criminal history is run by the sheriff's office, or if it's a city arrest, a criminal history is run by the City of Conyers Police Department. I also know that by the time that first appearance hearing takes place, which is either later that day or the next day, but certainly within 48 to 72 hours, that the magistrate court runs a criminal history as well. So the magistrate court judges know the criminal background of the person that they have in front of them. And we usually, if there's going to be a committal hearing, we will run a criminal history before that committal hearing as well. Mm-hmm. But if there hasn't been a committal hearing, we run criminal history when we open the case in our office. At that point in time, the case is opened. The investigator is assigned. We work, like I said, to try to get the victim and witnesses in as quickly as possible, because domestic violence cases are fluid. While on the day of the event, the victim may want to prosecute, 2 or 3 days later or 2 or 3 weeks later, she may not, or he may not want to prosecute. And so we try to get him in early so we can discuss what happened. At that point in time, we're in the process of gathering information from the sheriff's office or the City of Conyers Police Department. What was the investigation? Are there photographs? Are there recordings? Are there 911 tapes we need to get? All the stuff that it takes to prosecute the case.
And that's all I need. I was curious as to how that process and exactly the time frames you were talking about.
And there's one other step after that, though. Once you gather everything, we have to draw, especially in state court, a piece of paper that's called an accusation, and that's the formal charging document. Once that's drawn, we file it, and then it's set up for arraignment, and then that's our real first court appearance. This particular position that we're talking about has handled, in the last 14 months, 577 cases. As I mentioned, it has cut our response time virtually in half, which I think benefits everyone. And it's had an additional effect in that by freeing up one assistant district attorney position to handle what can be very complex cases, it has allowed my other three lawyers in state court to get faster, bigger, stronger when it comes to the traffic cases, the DUI cases, the shoplifting cases, the other assault cases that are not domestic violence related. And what we have seen is quicker turnaround time with all of our other cases in state court. Matter of fact, probably my state court right now is running as well and as smoothly as it ever has. I think we're moving as quickly as we ever have, and we're processing those cases. And we're doing justice, which I think is important. And so what I'm asking as my first request is that we be allowed to continue that position. The grant funds run out on December the 11th of this year. The position would terminate at that point in time. I'm asking this board to continue this as a county-paid position, but for a revenue stream other than taxpayer dollars, I'm going to request this. You may or may not know, but every time a criminal defendant is ordered to pay a fine, he's also required to pay a 5% surcharge, which is a victim witness fee that is collected by the clerks, various clerks of court, and are turned over to the county government. And it sits in a separate fund. Some of that money on a yearly basis is utilized to support my victim witness coordinator's salary. Some of that money has been allowed to go to project renewal over the years by agreement of the Board of Commissioners. My understanding is that we have built up a reserve in that money, which is, at the end of the year, is going to be about $65,000. Based on the numbers that I received from Finance on Friday, to maintain this Assistant District Attorney position for 2012 would cost $54,294.15. So well under that $65,000 reserve that we have built up. And so my request is, for 2012, you allow this position to continue the good work that it has done in state court, and that you pay for it out of those 5% dollars. And therefore, at least for 2012, it's being paid for by criminal defendants and not by the taxpayers of Rockdale County. So.
Now, will that still mean that there will be monies that go to project renewal?
My understanding is that is a reserve that has built up that is beyond the monies that have been used to pay my victim witness coordinator and beyond the monies that have gone to project renewal.
Okay.
It's money that's, for lack of a better term, is just sitting.
Surplus.
It's just surplus.
True surplus.
True.
True surplus.
True surplus.
Just checking.
You were asking that if we did that, it wouldn't take away from project. Right.
That's correct. The opportunity, can I ever talk to the DA over in Newton and Fulton about that?
I have talked with the prior district attorney of the Alcovey Judicial Circuit, and I have talked to the current district attorney of the Alcovey Judicial Circuit, and I haven't seen much movement. In fact, I saw the current district attorney at a project renewal function last week.
Oh, that's a good step.
So that's a step in the right direction. Now, let me go to, and so I would ask you to approve that position to allow it continue through 2012, and then we'll talk about it again next year and then see where we go for 2013.
And I'd be in support of that. I think that's a great idea. So.
Let me talk about the next issue when it comes to personnel, and I want to preface it with some comments, some that I've made in the past and some that may be new. We certainly have seen an increase in the crime rate in Rockdale County in the almost 13 years that I've been district attorney. In the late 90s and early to mid 2000s, my office was opening somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,000 to 3,800 cases a year. In 2009, though, we jumped up. Around the time that the economy changed, we jumped up, and in 2009 we opened 4,522 cases. In 2010, we opened 4,455 cases. And here in 2011, I project we're going to open somewhere around that same number. So we've been steady over the last 3 years, but we hit a significant increase from the previous time before that. I have not added a legal secretary position to my office since 2001. So it's been 11 years since I've added a legal secretary. With the exception of the grant-funded ADA and state court that we just talked about, I've not added an assistant district attorney to my office since 2005, and I've not added an investigator to my office since 2007. So you can see it has been a period of time since we've added any significant positions in my office, and yet the crime rate just from pure numbers has gone up. But we're all aware that we have seen an increase in violent crime, and in some ways with the type of sophisticated crime that takes more man and woman hours to research and prosecute. And during that same time frame, we have had what I would call unfunded mandates placed on us by the state legislature. We've seen additional requirements as far as victim notification that have been added to our roles. We've seen changes in the expungement law, which has taken up a significant period of our time. We've been added to the Family Violence Task Force. I've been made chairman of the Child Fatality Review Committee. We've seen GCIC compliance requirements change. All the over time has added a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more to what folks in my office do. And yet with that, I feel like we've done a pretty good job, and I've tried to recognize the economic situation that the country, the state, and Rockdale County have been in since 2008. And so I've told my folks, you do more with what you can, and we'll just do the job. And so far, we've been very successful in my mind. Although, as I've told the chairman a couple of weeks ago when we met, I've started to see us fray at the edges. Even though I've got a very experienced staff, most of the folks have been with me almost a decade. I have people who are willing to work hard in my office. I have a fellow who has retired from the DeKalb County Police Department, was an accident reconstructionist for 30 years there. He worked for me 2 years until Social Security pretty much required that he either retire or run into financial difficulties with continuing to have a job. And he now volunteers. He comes to my office on almost a weekly basis and works on my vehicle homicide cases for free. I don't pay him a thing. I got 4 folks in my office who speak Spanish, 1 that speaks French. I've got a very good staff, but what I've started to see is them fray at the edges. And over time, they really haven't gotten any help. All right, now add to that what is coming. And what is coming is a change that Judge Nation proposes for his calendar. Commissioner Nesbitt, I heard you mention a little while ago the word efficiency. For the longest time, the superior courts of Rockdale County have worked to maximize resources and to be efficient. And that we've got 2 superior courtrooms, and those courtrooms have alternated resources in order to make the best use of those resources. For instance, the very first week of a criminal month, every month, the very first week, on Monday we have grand jury and we have Judge Irwin's probation revocations. On Tuesday we have Judge Irwin's arraignment and motion calendar. Wednesday's a free day, although we do committals over at Magistrate Court. Thursday we then go to Judge Nation. It's Judge Nation's arraignment and motion calendar. And Friday we do Judge Nation's probation revocations. And so that's usually your first week of the month where we alternate resources in order to cover both courtrooms. And then we had been alternating criminal trial months. That is, the first month of the year, January, would be a Judge Irwin criminal trial month. I would take all of my assistant DAs assigned to Superior Court and we'd go attack Judge Irwin's courtroom. And for 2 weeks we would, prior to those 2 weeks, we would prepare cases. I'm not sure most folks realize, but walking into court and standing up and calling a case is just the tip of the iceberg. In order to get ready to walk into court, you have to know what that case is about and you have to be prepared. I'm in the middle of working on a murder case I'm taking to trial next week. I've been working on it for 8 weeks. Calling witnesses, bringing them in, looking at the evidence, doing everything necessary in order to be able to walk in court and somewhat know what my case is about. But in January, it's a Judge Irwin trial month, and we would have 2 weeks of trials and pleas and resolutions of criminal cases in January. During that same time frame, in prior years, Judge Nation would be having a civil trial month. So all the civil business of the court he would be handling in January. And then in February it would flip. Judge Nation would be trying criminal cases in February, and Judge Irwin would be trying civil cases in February, and the next month it would flip again. And it would allow us to direct our resources at a particular courtroom and hit it hard for that particular month. Judge Nation proposes, and I expect he'll be here, I think he's here a little later on this afternoon, and I don't know how much you've read in the newspaper, you know about his proposal. But Judge Nation, for various reasons I guess, but one of the primary ones he cited was his civil calendar had grown so small that he wasn't doing much during his civil weeks, and he decided he wanted to increase the amount of his criminal calendars. And so now instead of 10 weeks a year, he's going to have 20 weeks a year of criminal calendars. He's essentially going to have criminal trials every month, even the months that Judge Irwin is having criminal trials, and he's going to have civil twice a year. He also proposes to have his criminal calendar the first 2 weeks of the month, as opposed to we've been having in the third and fourth weeks of the month. And so what you have happening is, number one, an increase in the amount of trials that we're going to have to be prepared for. We're going to have to work to be prepared for by double. And number two, he's changing his calendar so it's going to be in direct conflict with what we got going on in Judge Irwin's courtroom. And so those first 2 weeks where we'll be trying cases with Judge Nation, we're still going to have grand jury. We're still going to have Judge Irwin's arraignment calendar. We're still going to have Judge Irwin's motion calendar. But that's also the time we would normally use to get ready for Judge Irwin's calendar. We'll be in Judge Nation's courtroom. Likewise, when we finish with Judge Nation's courtroom, we will then, on those months that Judge Irwin has court, we'll transition right into Judge Irwin's trial calendar. So that time when we're in Judge Nation's courtroom handling cases, that would be our prep time for Judge Irwin's courtroom. And so now we're at a point in time where I feel like we've already been stretched And quite frankly, if it weren't for this change, other than the legal secretary position, I would probably say we'll just make do till next year. But I can't make do if we're going to go to this new system of calendaring. And so what I'm requesting is 2 assistant district attorney positions. And what I envision is, as opposed to 4 and 5 lawyers that I've had attacking a courtroom, I'm going to put 3 lawyers in each courtroom. One will be a drug prosecutor to handle the drug cases in each courtroom and the drug forfeitures, the civil side of drug cases. And then the other 2 lawyers in each courtroom will handle everything else. Lately I seem to just be working on murder cases, but with me and my chief assistant coming in and handling the most serious cases in the courtroom. And so I'm requesting 2 assistant DAs. I'll take 3 of the 4 that I have assigned right now. 3 will go to one courtroom, 1 of those will go to the other courtroom, and then the 2 new positions will go to that other courtroom. So I got 3 and 3 in each courtroom.
And what salary?
Right now, what we're working at is the entry level, but with benefits, $54,537.05 are the numbers that have been provided to me by finance when you calculate everything out for each ADA position. Then I'm requesting a legal secretary position. I need that in the worst way. And that position will not only help with the burden that we have or that has been created over the years as far as workload, but it will also, that position will now be utilized to coordinate with Judge Nation's office, make sure we've got the calendars correct, that we send notices out, we send subpoenas out, if we have to do bring back orders to bring people in from state, all the paperwork that's necessary to get the cases moving and to make sure we're in the right place at the right time. That's what that person's position would be.
So the 2 assistant DAs would be exempt, salary exempt?
They're exempt.
Okay. So this difference in funding, the $119,000, is made up by a legal secretary and what else?
Legal secretary, 2 assistant DAs.
I thought you said they were exempt.
I think it's the legal secretary.
The legal secretary is not exempt, and I haven't gotten to. I'm also requesting an investigator. That would be someone who would be dedicated to that courtroom. We're obviously going to have to move quicker and faster as far as having court every month, and that position would be dedicated to tracking down witnesses, gathering our evidence, getting it to the courtroom, and then helping the attorneys in the courtroom. If I had to cut a position, if there are not enough dollars to go forward, that would be the position I would ask you to cut.
But there must be something else in there because that's $119,000.
Well, in 2010, he had about 3 vacancies.
Yeah, the dollars
It
don't.
wasn't fully funded in 2010.
I see. Okay.
If you funded the 4, and I'm not talking about the state court ADA that we've already discussed would be funded from 5% funds. If I've calculated what Rosalind sent me correctly, if you funded all 4 positions, it would be $171,326.76.
Including benefits?
Including benefits, $171,326.76. If you only funded the 2 ADAs and the legal secretary, it would be $134,987.02. $134,987.02.
I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5 would be the 4 for the 2 ADAs, the legal secretary and the investigator to handle the Judge Nation change.
Right.
And then the state court position that we'd already discussed that would be funded with 5% money. Once again, and I know money's tight, and quite frankly, if we didn't have the change, I would say make do except the legal secretary position, which I have no depth when it comes to legal secretaries, and I'll tell you where I'm at right now. I have 2 out. One had a baby, and mom and child are doing very well. And then one of my other secretaries, her son was involved in a grease fire 3 weeks ago. He's been in the hospital in a somewhat very serious condition for the last 3 weeks. And so I've been down 2 secretaries, both for perfectly legitimate reasons. But that means somebody else has got to pick up the workload, and because we can't stop. Crime didn't stop in Rockdale County just because something else is going on. And it makes it tough.
Let me ask you, with the Judge Nation's proposal of change, I don't know whether to call it a proposal or just something that's going to happen or what.
He says he's doing it. And
so did you all, my question is, in a very serious way, did the judicial system get together and talk about this, or Was this something he sent you all by information, say, hey, this is what's going to happen? I'm just trying to get to an understanding of, and I can ask the judge that. I'm just trying to figure out, because this is a significant change. I mean, everything that you just outlined, and I think this is the first time, other than when I read the letter that came from Judge Nation myself, that came to the Board of Commissioners, this is the way you articulated this morning and outlined it is the first time I've actually seen it play out that way, and I could see the impact that it's going to have on everybody over there across the street. It's going to have, I mean, in every office.
Well, I expect you're going to hear from Ms. Wilson that it's going to have an impact, and I expect you're going to hear from Stephen Purvis that it's going to have an impact on the Public Defender's Office as well. To answer your question, my first inkling was a letter that I received from Judge Nation where he indicated, number one, that he wanted to change his time management because the lack of being busy when it came to his civil calendar and the wanting to deal with criminal cases because of that lack of time with the civil calendar. He also, in conversations that I've had with Judge Nation, he wants us to move folks through the jail quicker. And certainly having a criminal calendar every month will speed that process up to an extent and will probably save some dollars by moving a little quicker. You're either going to be moving people out of the jail, or for those that need to continue to be in jail, if they either plead guilty or they're found guilty, then the state will start picking up some of that tab. How much money that is, though, I don't know that you're going to be able to quantify ahead of time. But to answer your question, when I first got the letter, he gave me, there were three options in the letter. I chose option 3, which is not the option that he's going to follow. And then I went down and talked to him about it. My understanding is that Ms. Wilson has discussed it with the judge. I do not know if Judge Irwin and the Public Defender's Office have. We did have a meeting that Chairman Oden set up about a week and a half ago, where a number of what I would call the judicial players were there, and Judge Nation was there, and we had a discussion. But he believes that Judge Nation, and I don't necessarily need to speak for him, he can speak for himself, but he believes that this is the best option for his courtroom and for the citizens of Rockdale County. And my understanding is it's not something that is a debatable issue. It's something that's going to happen in January, and I can either be ready for it or I can be unprepared. Either way, I'm going to be ready somehow, but I'm just asking your help to be ready.
Well, you know, I tell you what, I am in favor of expediting the process to the jail without question. That is something I'm in favor of. I have to. It's unfortunate, the timing of this, because where we are,
it's tough.
It's tough, and to be in a catch-22 position when we are trying to. You came in probably after. I'm not sure when I was talking about pressing my colleagues with the fact that we need to figure out how we're going to give our employees a raise. At the same time, I'm listening to everything you're saying, and of course I knew about this before you came in this morning. This change over in the judicial system in terms of the calendar, the financial impact that it's going to have on, although in the long term perhaps good for the county and for the residents, certainly for jail operations is what's going to happen over there. But today and for right now, the first public comment we had this morning starting off this work session was urging and encouraging us to think and think again and then rethink that about these decisions that we're trying to make. And perhaps I'll have this conversation again. I know he's the choir.
And trying to rethink, I'll offer it one more time just so you hear me. I think in order to go forward, I think I need the 2 ADA positions, and I think I need the legal secretary position regardless. If we have to cut the investigator, I can make do there. But I will say this, and we move cases, in my mind, very quickly here in Rockdale County. Most people don't know, but I'm required by law. Once a month, I send Judge Nation a list of those defendants who are sitting in the Rockdale County Jail being charged with a felony who have not been indicted yet. And so every month, I'm looking at who we have sitting in the Rockdale County Jail in order to prepare that list. And we're constantly pushing those cases before the grand jury to get those cases moving. From time to time, a case will slow down, or a case may be very serious where it takes some time to get to court, or more investigation needs to be done. But in the vast majority of cases, we move as quickly as anybody in the state of Georgia. With that said, to kind of address your concern, my belief is public safety is the number one obligation of government. That's why cavemen banded together to begin with into little clans, and then little towns, and then little cities in order for us to be able to protect each other. I know the board will do what is in the best interest of Rockdale County in order to protect the citizens here. I thank you, and I haven't said it, I thank you for assisting me last year in replacing my two old Crown Vics and some of the computers in the office. And that has helped. Having the new computers has helped. I had mentioned to you last year that we had run into a situation where we couldn't open certain digital information because of the age of our computers. Well, having the new computers has helped tremendously. So the digital recording of the armed robbery at the local store, we can now plug into our computers and see it and more easily play it in the courtroom than we could in the past. And so I thank you for what you've done for us in the past. I know you'll give this serious thought and consideration. I've got to be ready to go in January regardless. And so
let me just say this one last thing. Based upon what I know in the conversations you and I have had previously about the need in your department, honestly, I don't think what you've outlined or what you're requesting this morning is all that contingent on this calendar. I think you need this stuff anyway. You need this personnel anyway. Maybe one of them, as you mentioned, if the change wasn't about to take place, you probably could do without. But for the most part, in the number of years you've gone lacking or without because you've been so much aware and in tune with the budget and where we are, and you may do, this is a need, whether the change or the calendar is going to take place or not. So I support what you're doing, and you're absolutely right. Public safety is on the top of the list, I believe, for all three of us. But my concern about that calendar, and you've already explained that to me, and I'm sure I'll hear more from the judge when he comes in, what the timing of it and the impact financially is going to put on us having to make that decision. My last issue in reference to this, which I'll mention to Chairman Oden already knows, and Commissioner Nesbitt, you toured my office a few months ago, so I think you're aware of this. Even if you give me the positions, I don't know where I'm going to put them, and so I will ask the chairman to consider where I might be able to put those bodies if I'm allowed to have the positions. Because literally, and Commissioner Nesbitt, I know you saw this. I have people sharing offices. I have people sitting on top of each other. Right. I've got to have someplace to put them. So you really need them to be in the same building? Not necessarily. I mean, my preference would be to have everybody together, but once again, we'll take what we can get. So. Any other questions?
Mr. Reed, I certainly appreciate you. We have talked about it very briefly, and of course we have to wait and see how things play out. But we must get ready. District Attorney Reed, I do have a question. To help us in the future going forward, is there a way that maybe your office could provide I know you mentioned some numbers and statistical data about 2001, 2005, 2007. And the caseloads in 2009, 2010, 2011. Is there a way that you guys can provide us with an annual report, a written annual report, so we can look at the data and see the historical and see the trends? You mean numbers, Mr. Chairman? Mm-hmm. Annual report.
Yes. Let me see what I can do about pulling that together for you.
Yeah, that'd be helpful for us as we listen to you going forward.
I understand.
They can have the historical value behind it.
We can wait till your legal secretary gets that.
I understand.
Other than that, Commissioner, what you have before you is that. Commissioner, you're absolutely correct. When this came down, we did ask all the constitutional officers and elected officials to come and sit down. Let's talk about this change. And you heard me say earlier, you'll see the domino effect as we go through the day. And it's enormous. And I've placed before you just now the information that we sat down and talked with the individuals involved and how it's going to affect it. and the calendar that Judge Nation presented and the work that the staff helped me put together here to show you the impact. You see where District Attorney says for item 5, actually the one is a DUI. I didn't change that in here, but it's a DUI position. Domestic violence. So it's 4, but it's the impact will be something similar in terms of dollar value. So
Who is this from? Judge Nation? Or from?
this is I put this together. We put this together. This calendar here you have is from Judge Nations to show what he's actually doing, saying he's going to 10 weeks each.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. Can I see this
You have one.
document?
You have one. I got one.
That 257, 275, 20 number, though, is incorrect.
Okay. Because it would deduct that one.
Once again, the 4 positions that would be taxpayer-funded positions, that is the 280A, the legal secretary, and the investigator, that would be 171, 326, 76, based on my calculations of what Rosalind gave me. 171, 326, 76. And then separate and apart from that, the domestic violence position would be 54, 294, 15, and once again, I ask that be funded through 5% funds, not taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, but let me ask you something. On this, it says that Judge Irwin has moved his trial calendar from 100 days to 120. That's not what I heard you say earlier.
Judge Nation. Well, Judge Nation is talking about days. And see, what he has done is...
I thought you said it would double each month. It would go from 10 to...
Well, his 100 days
Right.
was 50 days civil and 50 days criminal.
Okay.
What he's done is he's gone to... and he used days. He's gone to 20 weeks. He's gone from 10 weeks of criminal to 20 weeks of criminal. And while his days may have only gone from 100 to 120, his criminal's increased, his civil has gone
Which
down.
needs more work on you. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Because you don't do work with the civil.
Only with drug forfeiture cases,
Okay.
which we do from time to time. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.